This is Iorì Wase Profiles. I'm your host, Abigail Jacobs, joined on this episode by the President and First Vice President of the Kahnawake Royal Canadian Legion Branch 219. Ray Deer of the U.S. Army and Tara Jacobs, who served in the Marine Corps, share their experiences from enlisting, serving, and what it means to them being a Kahnawake veteran.
Eagle's Nest Convenience and LaFleur's Restaurant, located on Route 207. Eagle's Nest, open daily from 8 to 11. Pick up something fresh from their deli counter. Open 8 to 6 on weekdays and 10 to 5 on Saturdays. And while you're out, grab some takeout or call in for delivery at LaFleur's Restaurant, open 11 to 7 from Sunday to Wednesday and 11 to 8 from Thursday to Saturday. All your needs in one convenient location.
So just to start today, if you could just introduce yourselves to our listeners, maybe give us a bit about yourself and how they might know you here in the community.
Hi, my name is Ray Deer. I am the current president of the Royal Canadian Legion here in Kahnawake, former member of the Royal Montreal Regiment, the Canadian Forces, and also former or retired U.S. Army veteran of 21 years.
Hi, my name is Tara Jacobs. I'm the first vice of the Royal Canadian Legion in Kahnawake. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years.
Thank you. I would like to start with knowing starting at the beginning. When did you enlist and where were you stationed?
I enlisted in 1991. Actually, I was 17 at the time, so my mother had to sign for me. I went in February 1st. I went to boot camp. So I was in from 92 to 96, Paris Island. I did my boot camp. After that, I went to Jacksonville, North Carolina, Camp Johnson. And then I was stationed in California. I went to Somalia. And my last year in the service, I was in Iwakuni, Japan.
Henry, when did you enlist?
I'm planning to do it within a week or two. No,
You're never, age is nothing but a number.
Yes,
never
yes.
be.
Actually, when I first decided to join, I was going to McGill. I was going to be a phys ed teacher. As you know, you played sports for us, and I was always a coach or involved with sports. And when I was at McGill, I missed a lot of classes, So I decided that I needed a new path. I didn't know what that was. Decided to walk downtown Montreal and seeing the Canadian Forces recruiting station. And being a kid that played war and, did things like that, I said, let me go check this out. And I actually did. I stopped in with the intention that I'm not joining, nothing, and
just
after
seeing what it's about.
Yeah. After talking to him, lo and behold, he said, your regiment is right down there. He had me sign the papers, and next thing you know, I was in the Canadian Forces, and it was the reserves. I kind of like that. I like the discipline, the everything that is attached to being in a military, very organized. And a lot of the Canadian Forces guys and gals that I served with were saying, if I had the opportunity, I'd join the U.S. Better pension, better money, and I wasn't thinking of that. But then I told them, I said, I can do that. I can cross the border and join the U.S. And they were, oh, yeah, right. And I said, yes, I can. And I actually did. I told them, that's my plan now. And so after 2 years in the Canadian Forces and the reserves and actually enjoying it, I went joined the U.S. and stayed for 21 years.
Wow. Yeah. And so where were you stationed in those times?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Went to boot camp in Fort Dix, New Jersey. Then I went to do my advanced training at Fort Sam Houston in Texas. Then from there, I came back home, did a little recruiting at Plattsburgh, as a hometown recruiter. From there, I went to do my OJT at West Point. After I finished my OJT, now I had an actual trade, I was in the medical corps. And my first duty station was Fort Sill, Oklahoma. From Fort Sill, Oklahoma, I got deployed to Central America, to Honduras during the Contra conflict,
Yeah.
After that, As soon as we got back to the States after deployment, I had orders for Germany. No chance to even wash my clothes. You're going to Germany.
Oh my gosh. What? Yeah.
So I told my wife and she said, goodbye. No. She said, oh my God, make sure you leave the checks. So went to Germany, did 7 years in Germany. Loved it. Didn't want to leave. After that, I was reassigned after the Gulf War to West Point, which I had been at before.
Yeah.
Kind of worked my way up the ranks. And my last duty station was Fort Irwin, California. And that's when I decided to throw my combat boots over the clothesline or on the tree and come back home.
Wow. That's awesome. And here in Kahnawake, we have such a rich history of community members who have served. What was it like? You mentioned, you were just kind of in school and looking for a different path. What inspired you to enlist, Tara?
To be honest, I wasn't ready to go on to college.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess for some reason I just said, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I love their uniform.
Of all the different, you're like, there's lots of different things I could do. I like that one the best.
I mean, our uncle was in the service. And so I just said, I'm going to join. Like I said, I wasn't ready to go on to college and took a different path.
Yeah. How did your families feel about you guys choosing this path? Do you remember?
Well, for me, I didn't have in my family, my immediate family, we didn't have a military history.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I wasn't influenced, I guess, in that way. But as a young person, I remember the Legion parades.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually what sparked my interest. And actually, where they used to set up near Howard's, if people remember where Howard's was, Joe DeLille's Howard's.
Okay.
And it was during the Vietnam War era. And here were all the boys from town, older than me, but they were all dressed in their uniforms. The guys from the U.S. Navy, the Canadian Forces, the Marine Corps, the Army. And they were all lined up. And during Vietnam, we had 103 community members that joined during that time, a little bit before my time. But it was inspiring, impressive, you name it. It just kind of, wow, look at these guys, and they were all doing what we do, joke around, rubbing elbows and having
Comrades.
a good time. Yeah. And once they started with the Black Watch, who's been part of our parade for every year, they started marching off. Here's all the kids my age, we're marching with them.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, that was a big influence. That was when I had decided it was something I might want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if you're actually going to do it, but that was ingrained in me.
And then when you did enlist, how did your family react knowing that you'd be taking this journey?
Well, my brother was happy because he had the room to himself. No. But I guess they, like my mother was a bit concerned, But, basically, I wasn't pushed forward by any of them, whatever path I was going to go on. They were going to support me in it. And they did throughout my time in the military, both militaries.
And you had mentioned you were only 17, Tara, when you enlisted. Your mom had to sign the papers for
she
you.
Had to sign. Like what Ray said, for me, there's no military in the family except on my father's side. And my mother was supportive. I mean, she signed.
Yeah.
So, it was just something that I wanted to do. And she supported me, and my siblings did as well. And when I graduated boot camp, my father came. So it was, they supported,
Good. Cool. And what do you remember most about training and serving?
For me, it's the hardship. In order to succeed, it's hard. It's not an easy life, many obstacles. But the thing that I think was a good part of it is as you went over each obstacle, you finished basic training, you went to the rifle range, there were challenges in front of you on a daily basis. So once you got over those obstacles, you realize that, hey, I'm pretty good at this, I'm not bad, I'm not great.
But I did it.
Yeah, I got over that obstacle, whether you crawl around, underneath, on the top. But once you got on the other side, it was like, what's next?
Yeah.
And it all becomes challenges, and it's always in front of you. That's what I think was, what kept me going.
Yeah. And it's like, it's that personal challenge too, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's like you played sports in your life, and you see this other team that comes in, and oh my God, look how big they are or how good they are. And then you beat them.
Yeah.
Or you outdo them, and you're like, well, where's the next team, or what's the next thing to do?
For me, going to training, I wasn't athletic as, as a kid in that. So going to boot camp, it was a challenge. And in the beginning, I couldn't climb the rope. So one of my drill instructors said, you're not going to make it, you're going to fail. So that pushed me even more. And when the time came to redo it, I was able to climb the rope and I graduated. And, the training that it instills in you. And for me, like being away from home, that was,
it's a whole other hardship.
Yeah. And you can't come home every weekend. I was in California, so I miss New Year's, I miss Christmas sometimes. But for me, it's learning to live on your own. That like all the stuff that I've learned and instilled in me, and I to this day, I still use it. So for me, it was I don't regret ever going in.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like one of my life's best experiences. Besides, having my children and that. So.
No, it's all a part of what has made you who you are today, these experiences. And what about, you guys mentioned you've seen many parts of the world in serving. What kind of things do you remember about that, about your experiences traveling?
Well, for me, California, I went there. Like, that's where I spent like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, you get used to it. But when we went to Somalia, so I served in Somalia. I wasn't there long, for maybe a month and a half. But seeing all the kids, like I was able to visit an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
You're riding down the highway, you see maybe a 9-10-year-old boy with an AK-47 in their hand, and so it's in the back of your mind, like, will I have to, what will I have to do and that, and so that was an experience. And then my last year in Japan, mainland Japan, Iwakuni, so I got to go to, different places, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have been able to do it if I never joined the service,
Mm-hmm.
get to travel and that, so.
And that's the thing too that goes with it is always, like, it's not just that, oh, we're traveling, it's the job, and it's part of serving and doing the job as well.
Yes. I gave it all I had. I would have stayed in, but back in my time, he served way before me, but things started to change.
Yeah.
So it got a little bit like more lenient.
Hmm.
And I didn't care for the way it was where you had, like, say, a private or a lance corporal telling off an NCO, like, back talking and not getting reprimanded. So.
Okay. Changing with the times.
Changing,
yeah.
yes.
And especially there's always that, like, I don't want to say a stereotype, but there is like that knowledge and that respect that when you're going into the service, you have your ranks and your respects and all these different kinds of things. And yeah, that's got to be something
Exactly.
that throws you off.
Yeah.
If you start seeing with the times that people's demeanors and everything are changing about it, it kind of.
That's what threw me off, because I would have liked to stayed in, longer, maybe not a whole 21 years like Ray, but maybe another 4 years, but that just threw me off. So
yeah, that's I like that though. That's an interesting reason to have your morals and your values questioning that and say, okay, no, I'm ready to.
It's like you work, say, three years to get to the position of an NCO.
Mm-hmm.
You work your butt off, and then you have somebody that just tells you, no, I'm not going to do it, or tells you off, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to write you up, and slap on the hand. So
just going off what Tara was saying, there was a lull during a period of time where all the military got kind of lax. You know what I mean? It took some other NCOs, especially after the Vietnam era. We had the Vietnam NCOs. What they experienced, they were more casual, and then a bunch of them, that were hardcore military, in all the services. The last group of Vietnam vets that didn't want to see what they had experienced in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted it to be more rigid, and it changed. The culture had changed where exactly what Tara was saying, people were not paying respect to your rank.
Mm-hmm.
It became more of a, like you were in a club,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And all of a sudden that changed. I know when I was in Germany, there was a sergeant major. We called him Gorgeous George. Apparently the girls thought he was the best looking sergeant major, but he changed the culture by emphasizing changing. I was in the medical corps, and he would tell us, you know, we were saying, well, we got to take care of patients. We got to do this. And he didn't care. He says, once a week, you're going to do just military. You're going to come out of the hospital and you're going to do training for a whole day, once a week. So I can't get you to come out here for, you know, just CTT, which was combat training, you know. And he wanted to make it more realistic. So the culture changed. And I found with that, there was a new respect for rank. I never had a problem with it because of what those senior NCOs started doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this had to be like in just before the 90s, you know, before I went to Germany. All of a sudden it changed, you know, and we no longer were wearing what's called a specialist rank, you know. We still have a specialist rank, which is a corporal, but they call it specialist. And it used to go from specialist to spec 5, 6, 7. So you had a specialist rank, and that meant that they specialized in something.
Okay.
They weren't necessarily in charge of soldiers, you know, doing soldier things like the infantry or, you know, the tankers. And this sergeant major across the board wanted to change that. He made everybody what's called hard stripes. If you were a specialist, you're just going to do it as a corporal or an E4. The next rank, he wanted you to be trained to lead soldiers, not to be the specialist in your job.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed. And I felt that it also changed the respect level, you know, all of a sudden. And to me, I didn't have a problem after that. I used to tell them, hey, I outrank you and I'm in charge of you. Guess what? I'm your worst nightmare, you know. And some of them would come up. I joined the Army and I'm in the medical corps. How come I got to go do this training? I said, because on the one side it says us Army, U.S. Army. I said, it doesn't say that hospital.
Yeah.
You're a soldier.
Yep.
Bottom line. So it changed.
Cool. And did being First Nations impact your experience at all?
For me, I wouldn't, not so much.
No?
I mean, I think it was more being from Canada. They notice your accent.
Really?
Or you say, hey, oh, you're from Canada. We know because Yeah. But no, I wouldn't say for me. No.
Okay.
For me, I used our native background to 100%. Well, you know me, Abigail. You know, as a matter of fact, when I became a senior NCO E7 and I walked into my new section, it was a requirement for the new NCO to introduce yourself. What am I all about?
Yeah.
You know, what are the things that you should expect from me? And I would base I always write down everything, right?
Yeah.
Take that away from me, I'm lost. So I would always have what I'm planning to say. And I know when I went to Fort Irwin, you know, soldiers want to know who's coming on board, who's going to be the new leader, you know. So they were talking to each other. Hey, you know, this Sergeant Deere, who is he? And, oh, he's a Native American. He's Indian. He's, you know, you got to watch out. He's a tough guy. Or, you know, some of them would say, well, he'll listen to you. But I decided to use Native background, if you want to say. And I said, well, I'm your new senior NCO. And I'm Native American, and just think about it. You know, this is the U.S. Army, and at one time, the U.S. Army tried to get rid of all the Native Americans. You know, just think about it. Now it's a Native American that's in charge of you. And I said, I'm going to do things my way. And I've heard through the military about Indian time. I said, yes, we are going to do things by Indian time, but according to my rules. Indian time means you better be on time. Don't say, well, you know, it's Indian time. I showed up when I can. And so I eliminated that. And that was...
I'm the Indian in town. It's my time.
and just stuff like that. So I used that background, and I did the same thing when I was in the Canadian Forces, and the ones that come and visit us from the Royal Montreal Regiment, they remember, the things I did. I was kind of, well, as you know, Abigail, a little bit off the wall, so a different sense of humor, So, but I've always used our background, and I would tell them, hey, our people have been involved in every conflict on this continent. There was not a time when the Europeans came here and they didn't have us as allies, And as I said, after being allies, now you let us be in charge and you're in trouble.
Yeah. So now, do you keep in touch a lot with your old comrades?
Two.
Yeah.
I've tried to locate the fellow, service members that I served with, but it's they're not on Facebook.
Oh.
But the one of my roommates, actually, we were in the same platoon in boot camp. We were the same field.
Yeah.
We went to Somalia, and then, I got out, she stayed in. And it was only, I believe, maybe about 5 years ago, I would search for her on Facebook, and she remarried, so she had a different last name.
Okay.
So then we reconnected and stuff like that. So, but I mean, I would like to reconnect with other, other service members that I've served with, but I haven't found them.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm. But that's cool. And especially somebody who you came up training with and serving with, and you got to reconnect with her.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, same with me. If it wasn't for Facebook, I've got in touch with a lot of my former soldiers, that were in charge of me, under my supervision. And it's pretty neat, Army's a bigger corps than the Marine Corps, so, we got a lot of people. So there's a lot more people you can get in touch with. And then when I returned home, the regiment that I was with is in Westmount.
Okay.
And I was telling Eugene Montour, who was our president at the time, I said, hey, I used to be in the Canadian Forces. And he was like, oh, okay. But as we went to a convention for the Legion, provincial convention, provincial command, I started walking. I said, hey, those are the guys, from my regiment. Lo and behold, as we were walking towards them, one of them, who was their president at the regiment, Fitzgerald, he looks and he goes, Ray Deer, 1978.
No way.
And I was like, whoa,
You still look exactly the same.
No, I just looked at Eugene and I went, see, I told you. So that was one thing. And then, like I said, I keep in touch with all the rest of the soldiers. One example that she's talking about, your roommate. I have a lifelong friend, and it was funny. When I was going to OJT, he was there. And I went there as to go do my training. He was leaving. So we kind of met each other, and said, hey, it was Sergeant Graffin Reed, Sergeant Graffin Reed, hey, he was a private deer, and we met each other. And then next thing you know, when I was in Central America, now I was leaving. And my replacement, because we both worked in X-ray, he was the replacement, not just him, but his whole company. And I was like, hey, I know you. And he goes, yeah, I know you. Weren't you at West Point? I go, yeah. He says, I was leaving, you were, and we were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So now I'm in Germany. I'm stationed in Germany. I had been there a couple of years. And we used to get, if you were going to sponsor someone, someone that was coming into country, you had to sponsor their family, send them a letter. Hey, this is what the unit's all about. And I look at the name and I go, and his name was Graffin Reed. There's not too many people that have that.
No.
And I'm looking at it, Graffin Reed. So I have to call him. That's the requirement.
Okay.
It's given to you. So get on the phone and, yes, I'm your sponsor. Sergeant Deer. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And as he started talking, I go, and this is the truth. I said, now you're an African American. And he goes, yeah. And I said, and you wear glasses? He goes, yeah. And I said, and you got really big feet. this guy had like wore size 15. I remembered that, and I was like, he's the guy that when he came down the hall, his shoes were coming around the corner before him. Anyways, I had remembered that, and I said, and you have really big feet? Pause. And he goes, yes, I do. I said, I know who you are. Weren't you at West Point? He goes, yeah. And then I said, you replaced me in Central America? He goes, yeah. Oh, dear. I said, yes. Oh, dear.
The tag team.
And we stay friends to this day. So it stays with you.
That's awesome.
Long story.
That's what we're here for. And now you're both doing work with the Legion. You're the acting president and...
Wait a minute, I'm not acting.
I don't know. So you are the current president and vice?
Yeah.
First vice.
First vice.
Cool. So what does that mean, and what do you guys, what do you like to do? What does it mean to be involved with the Legion for you?
Well, for me, like the first vice is in the event where he's not available, I would replace him. I haven't had to do it yet, which is great. But I mean, I take pointers. So whenever, I listen, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to do it. So I mean, when I first got out of the service in 96, I joined the Legion. And then I had my child. So I let my membership go for like years. And what brought me back, and I always tell everybody, was a fellow Marine passed away, Sweeney Deer. He passed away, and his service was at the Legion. And we went, and seeing the service that the Legion offers to veterans, the members, I was like, man, this is what I want when I pass away. The next day or whatever, I joined back the Legion. Mm-hmm. And so I became the secretary. I was the secretary for a few years. And then I was the second vice. And then, we didn't have elections due to COVID. So 2 years ago, I was the first vice. So for me, it's just, I like interacting with, fellow veterans. My point, what I would like to put out there is I'd like to see more female veterans active to take part in the ceremonies. Because as it is right now, there's two female veterans who sit on the executive board, myself and Louise Marquis. But there's so many more female veterans in the community, and I would love to see them participate. Actually, I think last year I did put it out on Facebook, our Legion Facebook page, asking more females to come out and participate. It's like when veterans pass away, I may not know them, but I still go out there and I pay my respects because I want that when my time happens. Yep. So it's just to pay respect and being part of the Legion. I mean, I enjoy it. It was unfortunate I couldn't be there this weekend for the parade, but I've been the MC, I believe, for the past 4 years. Yep. So I missed it this year, but I'll be back next year. But it's just I enjoy the camaraderie and, just talking about the past. I mean, everybody always has stories. Just 2 weeks ago, we were all sitting there telling stories. So, it's I enjoy it. And I mean, I'll be a part of the Legion for many years to come.
And kind of the same with me. I think what you said kind of hit home. It's the passing of Thomas Dell. Our numbers are becoming less and less every year. But we do have a lot of veterans in the community for whatever reason. Some of it could be because, we used to call it shell shock, but a lot of them have PTSD and they just don't want to deal with it, and it's tough. Yeah. I think we all have our flashbacks of something. So imagine if it just dealt with death around you, especially with comrades and friends. But for whatever reason, we just don't have as much participation, and that's what we need. As we become smaller and smaller, we need veterans to come out. Veterans know how to take care of stuff. You've experienced it, you've seen it, so you think with the same mind, irregardless of what branch of service you were in. But like everything else here in Kahnawake, time is a factor. We're all busy. We do a lot of busy time, regardless of what it is. But I think when a veteran passes, That's when we need to stop being busy and we need to do the right thing. And we've carried on that tradition, of burying our veterans. Mm-hmm. It's not a requirement for the Legion. Some people were saying, well, the Legion has to take care of the veteran when it's not. We're neither a burial detail. We're not a funeral parlor. Mm-hmm. So we try to do our best to put together something.
But you're doing that because you want to. You're doing that out of honor and respect.
I think we do it because we know we have to. All of us want, just like Tara was saying, we want that respect when we leave this world and we're going to the spirit world. I want a flag draped on my coffin. I want to hear probably the last bugle, and that's part of the legacy of this town. But we need our vets to come out and do that. We can't do it without our veterans, and having a handful, try to put that on. We've pulled it off, but numbers show exactly what we're all about, and so the more people that can come out and participate, meaning veterans, then the better sending off of a veteran that passed into the spirit world will be. It's an honor to do that, And when we finish each time that we bury a veteran, we sit down and we talk about old times. We talk about that person, whether it was good, bad. We always have stories about each other.
Yeah.
And but I think for that moment is when you put all of that away, good, bad. There's a veteran, and we need to take care of them. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line.
And at the Legion, you're saying you find a lot of that camaraderie. And if there are people who have veterans who have gone through or experiencing things like PTSD and things like that, you're able to come together. And like you said, you come from the same kind of places and you have those experiences together that you can help support each other in those kinds of ways. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we're not professionals.
No.
None of us are by any means professional. There are professionals that could take care of people that have PTSD, but we're there as a talk to me, and if you feel comfortable, tell me about your experience, because veterans will always talk to veterans, but we'll never talk about the deep things in us that belongs to us. Each veteran has things that they're never going to share.
No, but if you need somebody to commiserate with, you need somebody to share the good and the bad and just have that understanding, that connection.
Yeah.
It's somewhere that you guys have found that.
Yep.
That's awesome. And of course, being part of the Legion, and as you mentioned, you do the parades, and I know you from doing a lot of work in the schools and always traveling and speaking and all these kinds of things, and the outreach that you're able to do. What kind of different programs or things have you guys done with that?
Well, he could speak more because on it.
Because he talks.
Because he's retired. I still have a job, so there's sometimes where I can't go to the schools, during Remembrance Day, and I know that every year he goes. I think I've done it once, but Ray would be able to speak more of it.
Well, it's not only me; it's actually Pitt. Peter Jacobs, who's a former U.S. Army veteran. I mean, he's still a U.S. Army veteran, not former, but former active duty. And we sat down and just like you were saying, at the Legion, camaraderie, we're sitting down and we said, why don't we have a museum or something, Children don't want to hear stories all the time. You lose their attention in a couple of minutes. So they want to see things. It has to be visual, So we sat down and we said, we don't have a museum, so let's make a mobile museum and we can bring it to them. And that's what we've been doing now for several years. As a matter of fact, coming to this, I left Peter at Kahnawake School, put him on the spot because now he has to. I'm the one that's out. Everybody knows I'm the one that does all the talking, right? I'm the big mouth. Mm-hmm. And Peter doesn't mind being there, throwing in a couple of comments, but
today he's leading.
He's not a, and I told him, I said, I have to come and do this interview. And we had a couple of more classes left, and it's just sharing it with the kids.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And if they don't see things we don't show them things, then it won't be ingrained in their mind or psyche, you know. So if you see something, you know, maybe 10 years, hey, didn't you bring that, you know, mannequin, or was a
See
ship,
the uniforms
or
the models.
Yeah. And a lot of them will tell us, my grandfather was in the, you know, the service and, you know, whatever branch. And so it brings out that type of interaction, you know. So, you know, we've been doing that for a while now. And even during the pandemic, we just put up a display. We couldn't be in the building, but luckily, Cattery has always supported us, you know. Come Remembrance Day, I guarantee you there'll be a bunch of kids from Cattery, not the whole school, but come out and do our little celebration. And, you know, that shows the teacher's influence in having them remember.
And for things like Remembrance Day, what do these times mean to you?
It brings back, like, you know, memories. To me, it's you're paying respect to your fellow veterans who gave their lives, you know, and I think it's a time to remember everybody and to just be there and give the time that you have. Come Thursday, I'll be at the cenotaph, you know, and it's just, it's something, I mean, it's a somber time, but it's also, it's a time to get together and to be together and be there for one another. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and like I said, Remembrance Day is not only a day to remember, but for many of us to react, to show our respect. We always do it the Saturday before the actual Remembrance Day here in Kahnawake. That's been a tradition for years because the very first parade was 1951. And Cyclone Taylor had invited the Black Watch to come and do a parade. It was actually Lachine's parade, but he convinced them to come and do the parade over here.
Okay.
And they were able to get the pipes and drums. It's not Remembrance Day unless you have the pipes and drums and the bugles, and, you know, that's the heart of the military, you know, just like our drums at powwows, that's the heartbeat of Mother Earth, you know, well, that's the heartbeat of the military. We march to the drums, you know, left, right, you know, boom, boom, you know, you're listening to it. So without having them, it's really not Remembrance Day. So last year, they were not here. It was a totally different animal. We went through all the motions, but we didn't have the marching aspect, you know, and us as military, guess what? We marched. Yeah. We marched everywhere, you know. Anywhere that you went when you were in service, you didn't walk. There was more than 3 of you, somebody had to be in charge and you had to march. You just didn't, you know, like in town, you see a couple of buddies together, you know, hey, let's go. You know, can't do that in the military. Sergeant Major sees you on base, right? Walking, lollygagging, as the word is called. He'll yell, what are you doing lollygagging on my, you know, I get chewed out. What unit are you from? And you can't lie. It's right on your uniform. I'm with the, no. So you.
It's ingrained that you're going to march. Yeah,
you're going to march. So having the band, you know, it puts that thing front and center, you know. Yep. And when you march, you know, once the pipes and drums and, you know, you stand up straight, you know, and you go along with it, you know. And when it's all done, you kind of just like, say, I'm glad it's not far anymore.
And do you have any advice to anybody who's out there thinking of enlisting?
Well, for me, I would say give it a try, you know. For me, it was an experience of a lifetime. Like I said, you know, I gained so much knowledge. I mean, I left home at 17. Well, I just turned 18, you know, for 4 years, I had to live on my own. You gain so much experience, independence. You get to see different cultures, different ways of life. And during my experience, well, I was able to go to Somalia. You see, you know, the way people live, the people, the starvation and that, and you get to help, you get to assist, and that's like an accomplishment, you know. And so I would, if anybody is interested, any, you know, youths or teenagers that are maybe have an inkling of joining the service, I would say go ahead and do it. I mean, right now it's knock on wood that, there's no conflicts in that. But to me, it's an experience of a lifetime. And I mean, you'll always come back home. Like I said, I did 4 years. Ray did 21. He came back home.
Yep.
So Kahnawake is always going to be here for you. Get out there, experience life. That's what I say.
Yeah. Right now I get to, I won't say relive, but I get to go back and re-experience being on military installations because my son Bright Cloud is in the service. Matter of fact, he just got promoted to sergeant. And as I was saying on Facebook, you have a connection with all your former soldiers. And so I had some of my majors, my colonels, that were my commanders. And they started writing back to me, OMG, oh, I can't believe this. Who allowed this to happen? We only need one Sergeant Deer to be living. And now we have another one. And my son was telling me after he got promoted, and they don't call you that until you get that rank. And he says that morning before he got pinned, he was walking around and a couple of his soldiers just, showing respect. Hey, how you doing, Sergeant Deer? My son said, for a second, he said, I thought my father was here. Because he's always associated with, because he grew up as an Army brat. So
yeah. So you are Sergeant Deer and now.
Yeah, well, now I'm being replaced. So it's okay. But that's the legacy, you know what I mean? I never pushed him to join. Kind of like Tara, and myself. We've seen other veterans and the veterans in this community, and that was the way to push forward. But I have to commend Tara because how many females in this community or even throughout the world would think of joining? That's a heck of a thing to do. You know what I mean? And it shows. And I think one year at the Legion, I wanted to change the atmosphere because we always thought of it as a men's club, good old boys place. And I kept saying, how come we don't do a special honor for our female veterans? And we did make that happen. You know what I mean? Where we talked about it and we said, hey, let's do this. So we had all our female veterans, and they showed up. There was a handful that showed up. Sergeant Major.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major Lisa Deer, top dog in our enlisted rank. That's a heck of a position to get. But this is a matriarch society.
Yep.
The women run the show. So why not put them on the pedestal? It doesn't have to be the guys because we all served, Yeah. It should be shared. They're military, we're military, regardless of, what your sexuality is, It should be an honor for anyone. And I just felt for a long time that we knew they were there, but, we needed to make that push to say, hey, they're not just there. They served.
Mm-hmm.
It was time.
And actually, I think that was 2 years ago that we did that.
I think so.
There was so many female veterans that came out that day, and it was I was excited, it's gonna, this is gonna make them come back every year. But I mean, I know last year due to COVID, it didn't. Mm-hmm. We weren't able to, but that's why I'm hoping if you're coming for a ceremony, say Remembrance Day, or for a funeral, you don't have to drink. It's not, you come out, you do it. You have a water. You just to be with the other veterans, just to sit there and be part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why my big thing is I would love to see more female veterans come out,
This is the call.
Yeah. I mean, I put it out there 2 years ago, and I'll put it out there again, when there's a time for veterans, we should all come together, reunite, and just pay respect to our fallen veteran. That's because now the way it is, we're losing older veterans, and the membership is dwindling for senior branch.
Okay.
And now it's the younger ones. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm all that young, but I think it's our duty now, because in years' time, who knows who's going to be running the Legion? Who's going to be the president and that, because we're not all here forever. It's each day is
We lose more.
Yeah.
We lose more every day. And like I said, this year we lost 5. So, I mean, that's, as far as our numbers are concerned, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do great work with the Legion. You've done amazing work in your service. Thank you for all of your time and your commitment to serving. And thank you for being here today. Like you said, to honor the women and all the veterans. I'm so grateful to have had the both of you.
That's why she's the first vice.
So just now go for all your service and your time and for being here today.
Yo.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. I'm Abigail Jacobs with Iorì Wase Profiles. Stay up to date with all Iorì Wase podcasts, including The Lead, Front Page, The Cycle, and Profiles, by following the Iorì Wase podcast channel on Apple, Spotify, and Google. This project has been made possible by the Community Media Strategic Support Fund, offered jointly by Official Language Minority Community Media Consortium and the Government of Canada.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì Wase and its employees.